Hi everyone and welcome to Aviation Insider's YouTube channel. I'm Olivia and joining me today we've got Sean from FTA Global. Today's interview is just to find out a little bit about the flight school and what they have to offer. So hi Sean, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Great, thank you. So tell me a little bit about FTA.
So FTA is looking to celebrate its 15th year in operation in April 21. We have been established here at Shoreham, now Brighton City Airport. And I guess we pride ourselves on doing everything locally and in dealing with every student as an individual. That's really important to us.
Yeah.
We run both integrated and modular courses. We've got a fleet of Diamond and Piper PA-28 aircraft. We currently have 3 DA-42 twins, 6 DA-40 singles, all of those with Garmin 1000 glass cockpits, and then we run 9 Piper PA-28s. Or with steam instruments that are great for students to do their basic training on before they move on to the Diamond fleet. We also have 2 AltSim DA-42 simulators, which get heavy use, particularly around the instrument rating.
Fantastic. So you've got a great amount of planes and sims to use. That's fantastic. So you said you're based out of Brighton City Airport and you do a lot of it locally. So in terms of kind of course length, how long do you expect that course to take and how long are people going to be based out of Brighton?
So all of the flying is done out of Brighton. Our integrated course is 21 months. That's our target anyway, weather dependent. And one of the things we find is that Brighton is perfectly located. We're here on the coast, we get a massive variety of weather coming through, but we're also close to some of the busiest airspace in the UK, just 20 miles from Gatwick, also close to Farnborough. So it really drops students in at the deep end, but it means that from day one, they're learning to deal with air traffic, they're learning to deal with controlled airspace, and they're immersed in that from the beginning.
Absolutely. I think it's a really positive thing to do with your training somewhere that's going to throw you in straight away with it all. So that's great. So how much does your integrated course actually cost then in total?
So we've our course now is £87,950, including VAT. That includes everything: uniform, iPad, Dave Clark headset, and it's really from 0 to hero, as we call it. So it goes all the way through. It includes APS, MCC. We work very closely with partners. I know you've interviewed Adrian from Flight Performance Training. We also work closely with Jet Masterclass. So we think it's important that we deal with specialists on the various areas of the course. We know that we wouldn't do that much UPRT training with the number of students that we have coming through, whereas Adrian and the team at FBT are doing that on a weekly basis. So we make sure our students get the best UPRT training, and the same at the end of the course when they come up for APS MCC. They go up the road to Crawley. It's just 25 minutes away, and spend 4 or 5 weeks with Jet Masterclass, refining all of the skills that they've learned here with our instructors at FTA.
That's fantastic. That sounds great. So in terms of if somebody did want to look at coming to FTA, what's your assessment process like? So how's it structured? And do you have any tips for somebody looking to do the assessment process?
So we don't have a formal assessment. We meet every prospective student here, and we're very big on tours. So even through lockdown, we have virtual tours running at the moment. So it's really important to us that we meet a student. And we think it's really important that students spend as much time looking at all of the different opportunities for taking their training. When we talk to a student, we're looking at 2 things really. We're looking at their trainability and at their employability. And it's finding a balance between those 2 aspects. And we will deal very closely and work through. And if a student wants to take an assessment, wants to do a diagnostic, maybe it's a test of English, maybe it's a test of their flying ability, then we'll point them to independent sources to go off and do that. The assessment side, it's something that we've looked at, and it's something that we may well introduce later in this year, but at the moment it's an informal process, purely through that communication with prospective students.
That's fantastic. I think it's great that you kind of look at people as a whole rather than just what their flying skills are like. So I think that's really positive. So what sort of advice would you give somebody looking to kind of go into flight training now, especially with the current situation?
We think that now is absolutely the best time to start training. We know from our conversations with airlines, with people in the industry, and looking historically, that aviation traditionally bounces back and bounces back higher whenever it's been impacted by something like the coronavirus pandemic. Um, as we mentioned, the integrated course is 21 months long, so we're looking at people starting now or starting this year, coming out in 2023. And having spoken to airlines and spoken to people in the industry, it looks as though they're going to start recruiting again towards the end of this year, the beginning of 2022. So absolutely the right time to get involved. We appreciate it's been a really difficult time for students who started in the last 18 months. But we do all we can to keep those guys on track. We offer revals, and we run a series of workshops and contacts with the industry to make sure people are kept up to speed, know what's going on, can refine their CVs, interview techniques, and make sure that they're keeping body and soul together so they're ready for that job when it comes along.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's some great advice. So you mentioned having conversations with airlines. Do you have any links with airlines?
So we're well connected from an airline perspective, and over the past 15 years, our graduate pilots have gone on to fly for everybody from British Airways and Virgin to Wizz and Ryanair. We don't run airline courses. We think that independence is really important, and we think it's especially important for our graduate pilots to have a choice as to where they go. Not all of our graduates end up in airlines. We have got a lot of people who've ended up here flying business jets, in the public sector, flying survey flights. So having that opportunity to take those professional skills wherever they want to at the end of the course, and look at what's available then, we see as important, and we're looking to maintain our independence in that way.
That's great. So in terms of your graduates, what sort of support do you offer graduates after they leave you?
Well, as I've mentioned, we continue to provide workshops. At the moment, those tend to be virtual, but we always look to bring graduates into the school whenever we're able to. On the ground school side, we've actually aligned ourselves with colleges. So as soon as colleges are able to go back into the classroom, we'll have students back here in the classroom, and we'll have graduates back on site again. But our student services, it's ongoing from the day you start to the day you get a job in the industry and beyond. We keep in contact with graduate students and get them to come back in and talk to our students here, just so that they know what life looks like on the other side of the course.
Yeah, I think that's really great. That's fantastic. So in terms of what you offer, and compared to other ATOs, what do you think makes you stand out?
From the beginning of last year, we extended our ATPL theory to 9 months, and I believe we're the only ATO offering a 9-month ATPL theory course. As you'll appreciate, the ATPL theory is probably the most intense and most difficult part of the flying training, and we've discovered that extending it by that 3-month period, cutting down the amount of hours during the day, reducing the amount of work that students have to do outside of the classroom, be that real or virtual, has had a massive impact. So last year we looked at first-time passes running at just over 90% of students, with an average pass rate of over 90% as well. And in fact, the course that the exams that were taken in December, we had first-time passes of 97% with an average pass rate of 91%. So that's made a real difference on the ATPL side. The flip side of that is that talking to instructors and people like the aviation field who've worked with our students, they think they genuinely have a really in-depth grasp and knowledge about the material. So it's not just a matter of cramming and passing those exams. They're really taking on board the information. So we're really pleased with that.
Absolutely, and those figures are fantastic. And I think for anybody who's perhaps like anxious about ground school and worried about how quick it's going to be, I think a 9-month ground school is definitely something that is quite an interesting thought and would definitely be very attractive to a lot of people. So I think that's a great thing to have done.
Thank you. I think the other piece that we look for here that differentiates us from other organisations is the atmosphere. We don't have accommodation on site, but we are very close to Brighton and Hove, so there's a great opportunity outside of work for people to let their hair down and relax. And I know, talking to the students that are based here, that they find the location amazing. You know, we have got that opportunity when they're not flying to have a brilliant social life again post-pandemic, and we're looking forward to that getting back up to speed again.
Yes, definitely. Well, it's been so great talking to you, and thank you so much for taking the time out to tell us a little bit about your flight school. And I hope people are going to come and check you out. It sounds great. So
yeah.
So if you want to find out any more information, just come to Aviation Insider. And if you want to find out more about FTA, where can we find you?
So we're at Brighton City Airport, as I mentioned, and our website is www.fta-global.com.
Amazing. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
So thanks, Ben, for joining us. Welcome.
Thanks.
So why did you choose to train with FTA?
So I've always lived local to FTA, based on the south coast here at Shoreham Airport, and I've wanted to be a pilot since I was young, and I came to all the air shows down here, so I've always sort of seen the school around. And this was one of the first flight schools that I came to view, and as soon as I got here, I just loved the atmosphere, everything about it. You know, the facilities are great, the aircraft are great, all the instructors are brilliant as well. And they really engaged with you as you walked around just on the tour, which I thought was really nice. And then it's just a really nice atmosphere, and the way the students were all acting, very professional, but also very friendly. You could tell that everyone actually really wanted to be here and really enjoyed the training that they were doing.
Yeah, I think atmosphere is a really important part of the flight school that you choose. So that's really
for sure.
That you liked how it felt. So am I right in thinking that you're doing the integrated training route?
Yeah, so I'm on the integrated route here at FTA.
So what made you choose integrated over perhaps going modular?
So for me personally, I think the integrated route was something that I was always pushed towards in my own mind, purely because of the way it's structured. That starting with nothing and ending up with your full license was just something that really appealed to me. And it's also something that would help motivate me and push me through. If I knew that I had to meet that deadline for that exam and that studying, then it was something that I was more comfortable with, rather than having to really look around and find somewhere to do the training myself. But overall, I think the integrated route for me was the best option, just with the way it's structured, and also at this time in my life when I had that time available to do it full time and get it completed in that 20 to 24 months. I think that was the best thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it helps to have somebody kind of run it all for you rather than having to do it all yourself. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah,
so,
pilot training is stressful enough. So when you've got someone that can do all of that stuff for you, and you just have to sort of do it.
Yes, definitely. So what did you actually do before you started your pilot training then?
So I left college and I got a job working in Nando's, which was quite good fun, good experience. And then after that, my sister actually worked up at Gatwick Airport as a security officer, and she said, "Why don't you try that?" And I thought, yeah, it's good. It's in sort of the aviation industry, gets me around things I like, planes, and gets me talking to people more than anything. So I applied for the job and got that job. So I worked up at Gatwick Airport for 3 years as a passenger security officer, but we also did some sort of staff security. So it was brilliant because I got to talk to pilots all the time, go on board, have a look at the aircraft as well, and just be in that sort of environment that I always wanted to be in.
Yeah, I think a good thing to do is, if you're not ready to start your training, kind of find somewhere in the industry that you can join and learn some things before you start, because I think that's always beneficial to have that experience. So yeah, that's a great thing to have done. Yeah,
a number of students here, especially one of my friends here, he used to be working on the ramp at Southend, so he'd be pushing back all the aircraft and stuff like that, which was an awesome job, getting really up close with the aircraft. But definitely try and find some sort of job if you've got time between leaving school and doing your training, something that you should do. to try and find a job in the airline industry. Even if you go down and help out at the local flying club, it's something that's going to get you there, and it's going to help motivate you to do what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you actually kind of prepare for like deciding flight schools and then starting your training? What sort of preparation did you do before all of that?
So before, well, when I was younger, I was in the Air Training Corps, the Royal Air Force Air Cadets, and I was a cadet with them from the age of 13 all the way through to like 19, and then I was a staff member as well. So before I actually even started my flight training professionally, I did a scholarship with them, a 12-hour scholarship, which took me to my first solo. I also did some gliding as well. And then while I was an instructor, I was also teaching aviation subjects. It's nowhere near anything that we learn at ATPL theory, but it's still teaching younger kids about aviation and history, principles of flight, all those sorts of things. So that gave me a good base knowledge. And then I actually started to do some training with another flight school down here at Shoreham before I really decided that I wanted to go down the integrated route. So that obviously gave me a little bit more of the basic flight training, which was excellent experience for when I actually came and started the course. But to prepare for the course, I had all of the PPL books already. I got those cheap online. I read through those, made sure I had base knowledge of everything, especially for the ATPL theory, because I think that's one of the most difficult things that you do in your training. But other than that, it's quite full on, especially if you've been out of education for a while. Going back into that sort of routine it's quite brutal.
Yeah, definitely. And like you mentioned the ATPL training, so I think one question that people get asked a lot is, do you have to be good at physics and maths to do it? Do you have to be amazing, or is it just something that you can pick up even if you're not potentially a whiz at physics and maths?
I think mental maths is one of the main key skills that you have to have, really, and that you'll take through your career. Gone are the days where you have to do everything mentally or by hand. These flight computers are so advanced when you're in the flight decks and stuff now, especially in some of the aircraft we have here with the G1000 cockpit. It tells you crosswind and headwind and all that stuff, but you still have to be able to work it out. So when you do your initial training here on like the PA-28, you're working from the chart, you're doing it all yourself. So that's one of the key skills that you have to have for sure, the mental maths. As for like A-level maths, I didn't take A-level maths. I did take physics. Physics was always something that I kind of enjoyed anyway, and that was actually more relevant to the ATPL theory than the maths. I didn't follow the maths all the way through. It wasn't for me. I think maths is good when it's numbers, and then as soon as you start chucking loads of letters into it, it just scrambles my brain. So I didn't follow that one through, but I then took up computing instead, as I thought I'd try and do subjects that sort of relate or can be relatable to aviation. So I did IT, computing, physics and geography for my A-levels. Honestly, when you get to the ATPL theory, the only maths that I found that you really needed was basic trigonometry and rearranging equations. Other than that, as I said, it's the mental maths that you need when you're in the cockpit and you're flying.
Absolutely. So would you say to people to potentially do the subjects that they prefer and enjoy, rather than having to think that they've got to do maths and physics in order to do well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've had a couple of people message me on Instagram as well, and asking me, especially younger people as well, I want to be a pilot and I'm doing my A-levels. Do you think these choices are good? And I can't tell you what choices are good. I can tell you what I did and how it was beneficial to me, but I think it's better to do like something like geography or physics with an IT subject, and then do a subject that you enjoy and you're going to get a good grade in, rather than chemistry or maths if you're not going to do it. They say at A-level that it's easier to do maths and physics together, and it does relate, but at my college especially, they ran a small course alongside the physics course that basically brought you up to speed on all the maths that you'd need, and that was fine. But honestly, I think do a couple that are sort of desired: physics, geography, IT, stuff like that. I mean, geography is not even it was good, we learned stuff, but it was more about rocks and that, but it was still something that I thought, that'd be good to do. And I enjoyed it, to be fair. But I think do a couple and then do one or two that you enjoy, and you're going to get a really decent grade in, and that you can take forward. And you can say, look, I've got 4 A levels, 3 A levels between these grades, rather than I did maths but I got a D. You know, it's better to have better grades in that than, you know, almost a fail in something that isn't actually that important.
No, I completely agree. So in terms of like your training and everything, what part have you found the most challenging?
I mean, I've banged on about it already, but the ATPL theory for sure, especially coming out of education, as I said, it's brutal. You know, 5 days a week, 9 till 4. That's the integrated course here is full time. And I was going to talk about that really, that FTA is one of the only, if not the only, flight school in the UK that are doing a 9-month ground school course, which I experienced both sides of that. I did my first 2 modules as 2 months, and then the exams afterwards, and then my last module I did 3 months, and it's so much nicer. You've got more time to study, and you actually take in the information and retain that information after your training, rather than learning it, sitting the exam, dumping it out, ready to fill your brain with the next load. So I found that was much better with the 3-month course, which was a great thing. And they also then combine that with a computer-based training package that they offer now, which is really good. And that does help, because it's like you're being instructed and taught again.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think it helps you kind of manage and cope with the stress and the intensity of the ground school work. So
yeah, it means you can have some sort of a life outside of ATPL training as well. When you're doing the 2 months, you know, you're at school for the whole day, you go home studying straight away, have dinner, do a bit more studying. Whereas at least with this, it was shorter days spread over a longer period. You've got time to go home, do things that you want to do, you know, go to the gym, go out and exercise, which I think is really important in managing your stress as well. Going to the gym is always something that I found as my sort of hobby and stress relief, really. So when I could do that more often, I felt that, you know, my brain was clearer and I could actually study better than just cramming it in all the time.
yeah, absolutely. So if you could do all of your training again, what would you do differently?
I think I'd definitely set out more of a structure for myself, a study structure for the ATPL theory. I got really lucky with the summer this year, and I completed phases 1, 2, and 3 in under 3 months. I did like 80 hours in under 3 months, which was brilliant. I was doing, you know, 2 flights a day, which was really good. So there's not much that I'd change. But definitely for the ATPL theory, just my own sanity really is set out more of a study schedule that I can stick to, more structured, rather than, oh, I've got to study now, sit down and do it. Because that's the point where people lose motivation the most, I think, is during the theory, you know, especially if it's not going your way and you don't get the grade that you wanted on the exam, or you have to fail it, or you fail the exam, you have to sit it again. It's not the end of the world, you know. Look outside, the world's still turning. Just do the subject, and I'm sure that the airlines would actually prefer you to have failed the exam, sit it again, come back with a much higher grade than just scrape through all of them, if you know what I mean, because it shows that you've gone away and you've done the work and you've improved.
Absolutely, I completely agree. So just kind of to finish things off then, really, what would you say to somebody who wants to come to FTA?
Well, first of all, I'd say is definitely come down and have a look at the school. Obviously, with everything going on at the moment, that's not something we can offer, but there's definitely videos online that show the school. There's a new promotional video that they've just put out, which is brilliant, shows all the students. And there's a lot of YouTube channels from students here as well, so you can actually see some of the flying and watch the flying as well. So have a look at those. But if you want to come to FTA, there's virtual tours that we do when you can come on, Q&As. Message some of the students as well online. Most of them are happy to, you know, get back to you with any questions. If they don't know the answer, they'll find it out for you. Especially, you know, myself, I help out with the tours as well. So if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. But if you're looking to come to FTA, you've only got to come down and see it, really. It's, you know, the airfield's beautiful as well. It's a very small airfield, very busy, so the atmosphere is always great. You know, the airspace is busy, so that's great for your training as well. But yeah, definitely come and have a look. Even if you just have to walk around the airfield and just have a look, you can see FTA and all the movements going on. It's brilliant.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ben. And If you want to find out any more about Aviation Insider, just visit us at www.aviationinsider.com.